Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel. Okay, well I'm going to have to go with aluminum for the moment anyway. So, start with the thin one. Get that captured. There we go. There it is. Like I knew I had a towel here a moment ago. Sometimes they go on easy and sometimes hard. Come on. And of course, because I don't have turnbuckles on, the other end is flapping around as well. Big deal. It's just a little grease to clean up. Okay. Got a couple extras that I will set aside. I've got some on order that will fit. They're not going to be perfect. It doesn't appear that anybody, whether it's in RC, at least not that I can find, or just out in the world, makes basically an M3.5 spacer. I found some M4 aluminum spacers by Hot Racing. Hot Racing makes a lot of aluminum aftermarket parts, and in any event, 0.5 millimeters difference in the inner diameter is not going to be a problem. What's important is that they have a good, accurate linear distance of 0.5 millimeter, millimeter, and 2 millimeter. So, okay, time to break out the Lunsford turnbuckle pack. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. Okay, they are all the same size turnbuckles, so I'll set those aside. I'll pick two. I'll put the rest in here for later. And makes it simple. I mean, you gotta like that. They're all the same. So, I've probably given this part of the lecture a few hundred times too. Turnbuckles. They have a marker, like you can see that these have a little lip right here, a little groove cut in them. That points to which direction your rotation is going to be. So they all rotate the same way, tighten or loosen based on this. All of my kits, I put them facing left. If you're standing from behind on the car, they point to the left side of the car. I do it on all of my kits. That way, it's always the same. If I'm going forward, I'm tightening. If I'm twisting to the rear, I'm loosening. It's the same on all of my cars. I don't even need to think about it. I know which way to turn to get the effect that I want on my turnbuckles. It just makes your life so much easier to decide on a direction and stick with it. So let's see, the ones with the off-center little curve here are going to be to the outside. So for our first one, it's going to go in this direction. And I'm not going to make you watch me build turnbuckles. That's just ridiculous. Okay, I went ahead and did one of the turnbuckle installs just to sort it, and now I can show you the other side. Also, truth be told, I was caught up watching Formula One. It has DVR'd the qualifying session. This is the Turkey race, so couldn't resist. Anyway, there are two different ball studs. One of them is longer. You can tell the difference on the instructions. One is part number ends in 52A, the other ends in 53A. The one that ends in 52A is the one that is the same size left to right. The one that ends in 53A is the one that's the same. The one that ends in 52A is the one that is longer to one side, has a larger, thicker base. This is the one, the 52A, that you want on this linkage, or this side of the linkage, the one that's straight, not the one that's curved. And you want that flat side to be against your carbon fiber, and then the outer one to be tipped up like that. Okay? And so I am using the outermost and the innermost. I've got titanium hardware for both of these nice long screws, and I'll say it again, it's particularly important for the outermost one because that is unsprung weight. Now, you don't really need a wrench for these to hold the nut because of the way the plastic is shaped. You just get it into position, slide it in, and then you can go at it with your nut driver from the other side. Just hold it with your finger so it doesn't come out enough to be able to start turning and tearing the plastic. But if you just keep your finger against it, it's not going to go anywhere, and you'll be just fine. So you don't need to get it crazy tight, just snug. You're not trying to give that ball stud a bear hug, you're just trying to hold it. And as long as the threads are out of the lock nut, you know they're fully in the nylon, it's not going to come out, no need to worry. So, and we come from the back side of the carbon fiber, go through the appropriate hole to whatever setup you're building for, and then you slide into that longer end of the ball stud there. Almost everybody's got a different way of calling those things. Here they're called pivot balls. Now, it is kind of a pain the way this is set up here. To get a nut driver on this, you've kind of got to bend the bumper up and out of the way so you can get set into this. And then you can just tighten it from this side with a hex driver. I almost put on a pair of 18s. As you can see, there's a fairly decent amount of thread showing, and I may swap those out later for the 18s. I just don't think that it's necessary to. I mean, these have that little bit of a point to them where the threads aren't there on the hardware that you guys are using, the steel, you've probably got a solid 2 millimeters sticking out there. But you guys don't have the shorter hardware as part of the kit, so there's nothing you can do about it. But anyway, I may go ahead and swap those for a pair of 18s later. I've got a couple pairs of 18s. If I don't need them for something else, I'm going to swap them out for those. Not that it really does anything. It's not like a weight thing. It's just I just don't like lots of thread sticking out of a bolt. It just looks ugly. It looks like you didn't size up your hardware properly. So let's see what we're moving on to now, since the rear looks pretty much put together. Okay, we're going to finish our bumper. And then we're going to start doing exactly what we did in the rear to the front, starting with sway bar and such. So, let's see. Okay, we need to basically snap this in. Let's see, it says top, so that's helpful. And then you want these things arched upwards as well. Snap that on like that. And let's see, we need the 27s, which are the 3x16s. And then we need a pair of 3x18s, which I do not have in titanium. And you know what? I'm going to just go with the steel all around for those. It doesn't seem worthwhile using titanium on the rear bumper. So are these all the same size? Okay, we're supposed to have. Okay, yeah, right. 4 of the wait, 3x16s. Do I have any? I did buy the hardware for this, so I'm going to go ahead and use the titanium on these. Still taking weight off the car. You guys don't need to watch me do these little plastic things here. I'm going to go ahead and pause and come back as soon as I've assembled them. Okay. One thing you want to do is keep these a little loose. Remember, they're screwed into plastic, so they're not going to, loosen up on their own. You want this to be able to collapse. And that's going to, you need to allow this to rotate and this to rotate. Now this has a block that stops it from going so far, and then it starts collapsing this ellipse here. So don't over tighten these 2 screws or these 2 screws. Tighten them to bottom and then take them back like a full 1.5 to 2 turns. And make sure that, that this joint moves relatively freely, and this joint, at least over the range of motion that it has, moves relatively freely. Otherwise, if you make them tight, someone's going to hit you from behind. This thing's going to, crunch up a bit, and then it's going to want to stay there. It's not going to spring back to its normal running position. So remember that. So now we can set this aside and get our front diff assembly out. And let's get our sway bar and bag G. It's fairly easy to pick that out because you figured it had to be the one with the front arms. Try to make myself a little more room here. Caliper's gotten a workout on this model. Yeah, hon. Okay, I went ahead and assembled the front to this point. It is exactly like the rear. The bolts, everything is the same size. You put in your stops, you pull all the parts off the trees, you hook up the sway bar in exactly the same way. It is identical bolt for bolt with the exception of there isn't a bumper attached right here. Other than that, everything is like this. Where we start deviating is where we get to the drives, the axles. So that's where I'm picking back up. I didn't think you guys would want to watch me put together the same exact stuff again just for a different end of the car, even though, you know, it's different. It's completely identical in the way everything is assembled, so there's no surprises. If there was anything different, even slightly, I would have stopped and picked up from there. So now we are going to create the steering. We're going to put in our front drive shafts, and this is where things start getting different. Let me just do a little cleanup here. Don't need any of these. These have all been replaced with titanium. We're going to be using these first. So basically left and right. And this is all stuff we need right away. These come a little later. And right off the bat, I can take these turnbuckles and throw them into the storage bin. Okay, let's trim these pieces off of the parts tree they're attached to. We're probably going to have some left or rights here, so let's take a look at things carefully. Okay, the screws, the nut side with the locker here faces rearward. So this is going to be our left and this is going to be our right. Do not see any markings. And these guys are going to face up like this. And the side that has a hex to capture a nut goes down. So there's our, again, our left and our right. So, and we are going to need these at this stage. So those go here, these go here. Let's see, we're going to need 1404s. That's a 3x12 button head. And we need 4 of those. Some of these are a little nicer than some of the others. Those are the ones that are the Lunsford ones that have the ends a little sharp. I'm going to try and find those. Those are going to be the highest quality titanium, and the heads tend to be a little bit deeper. That's another one. Just need one more. There we go. Okay, so let's start by pressing our bearings in place. Okay, and we might as well go right to the drives. They'll be, I think it's easier to put these together, put the axles together, and then drop them into here and screw them in place instead of screwing these on first and then trying to do everything through the aperture there. Just seems like it'd be easier. So let's get going with some grease here. And again, this part is just like the last part, where I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while I assemble these drive shafts. You've seen me do that. You know what the process is, step by step, and I'll come back in a moment. Okay, so I put the two axles together exactly like the ones to the rear, and so now we can start moving forward with some other stuff. So now we're going to take these bushings and slide them in top and bottom like that, and then we can lower our steering knuckle in here, and it's going to be a little snug to squeeze it in between those bushings. It's not overly tight. And then we can start our screws. And the nice thing about these screws having the little bit of a point to them is it helps you center in and find the hole in the plastic to thread into. Now, you're not going to want to tighten these overly. You don't want to make the bushings swell. So just snug them down, you know, be reasonable. Don't try to make them tight, because if the bushings swell, then you're not going to get rotation. So this is what we end up with. Nice free moving action there. And again, that point just comes in so handy. That just made it really easy to figure out where to start tightening. Okay, there we go. Number 2. Nice free moving steering action. Now, before I put these on, because I'm going to be greasing stuff up, and I don't want everything flopping around like I did with the rear, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to assemble the turnbuckles. And these are even easier than the front ones. They're going to have the same thing where you've got, you know, one pivot ball that is symmetrical. It's identical on both ends, and then one that has a longer side. This is obviously the longer side, and it's got a wider base that mounts this up against the carbon fiber tower. So there we go, and we need 2 of our titanium turnbuckles. All the turnbuckles are the same size, and of course they are all going to point left. So left and left, like that. So I will spare you the complete boredom of my putting those together. I will show you a little tip. Especially these large ones, go together a lot easier if you just go once around, like one circle, maybe 3/4 of a circle. You take off a teeny bit of plastic at the very aperture, and they just thread so much easier. It's much easier to get them started, and I've never had any problem with looseness or felt like I took away too much. So, like I said, just one turn, light pressure, just kind of chamfer that edge a little bit, and the threads start so much easier. So, I'll put those together. I'll probably assemble one side and then walk you guys through the second side. So again, it's not totally boring. Okay? Okay, just gonna kind of walk you through a few little things. I went ahead and assembled one side so I can kind of show you how things are going to lay out ahead of time. And I need to do a little cleanup here. Just a moment. Okay. There are 2 sets of 4 bushings. Okay, there is a slightly longer set, and then there's the shorter set that go to these pieces that are already put together. So what you want to do, excuse me, we're going to slide these bushings through here, very similar to what we did with the steering knuckles. This is a really good system, actually, for making these things do what we want them to do and allow us free movement and steering. This is why I prefer this type of suspension setup versus the type that use those large a pair of large spherical joints. Some people like those, I know. It's a matter of taste. I just prefer this type of a setup. I think it's easier to work on. I've worked with the kit that had that sphere type suspension and found it difficult to keep a constant tune going. It was a lot of work. Anyway, that's just my experience with one kit. So now we just slide these in, and again, having these pointed ended screws from Lunsford really, really helps. And I'm just going to start these, which is what I did on the other side, because I want to also get that turnbuckle into place to keep this dog bone from dropping in and out on me. So I'm just going to make a few twists. And now I'm going to take one of these longer screws that we have. You have the size for your steel ones if you're using steel. Otherwise, it's M3 by 20 is what you probably got in your hand. And the same thing I'm using, it's just titanium instead. And if you did your turnbuckles correctly, you've got that standoff side over here, and you've got your marker pointed in either to left and right, same as the one across from it. So whether you've decided to go left or right on that, there's no right or wrong answer there, as long as you do it consistently through all of your turnbuckles and all of your kits. I don't need that just yet. That's what I need. Okay, So now I need to get this turnbuckle in here, and it's a little tight. I find if you go at it this way, it's easier. If you try to drop it in from above, it's chamfered. It looks like it would be easy to go in from above, but the chamfering seems to make it more difficult for some reason. I don't know why. So now we put in another M3x20. Let's do a 5. Remember, you don't need to get this crazy tight, and the bolt over here is going to be held by the plastic. So just get that snug, and then we can tighten these two and adjust our turnbuckle. Now, just like these guys here for your steering, you don't want to make these too tight. You don't want to impede the motion and the turning action of this piece. So what I did with mine was I'd only tighten them so I could just barely see a little gap between the head of the screw and the arm, and that kept it from being too tight and didn't risk compressing, because you don't actually have to touch down. It's not going to go anywhere. The bushings and the design of the arms themselves keep everything in place. You could use a longer screw and leave, you know, a 1/4 inch of thread sticking out here, and it wouldn't affect the accuracy or stability of the motion of things. It still is better to get them snuggish, but again, you want to make sure that, you know, nothing is moving around and it's not tight. So basically, you want to be able to move the suspension freely without any kind of stiction. So now I'm going to, this is going to take a minute because I got a long way to adjust this turnbuckle to get it like this. So I'm going to pause, and when I restart, we will have moved on to bag I, and we're going to be doing our steering. Okay, we are into bag I. And one of the nice things about the directions is a lot of the pages start with an exploded view of what you're about to assemble. And then they take you through the steps of putting it together. But the exploded view is a really handy reference that you wouldn't otherwise get in a lot of sets of instructions. I really like, this is probably the best set of instructions I've ever gotten with a radio control car kit, I would say without a doubt. Okay, let's start with this assembly here. We're going to need this piece, and this piece, and the spring, and this collar, and this tube, and this O-ring. So the O-ring is going to go inside this collar, just like a shock absorber adjuster, preload adjuster, exactly like one. And so then we're going to take this tube and drop it in here, seat it, and then this piece is going to go in here, and that's got the little rocker cam up action that tensions the spring and actuates the servo saver. And now we need to press this down here and get it start it to thread. So easiest way to do that is going to be to put it on top of something firm, because this arm is taller than this piece here, so you can't, you know, get it flat otherwise. So this is going to be difficult to do because you don't want to cross thread it. Wow, yeah, that's tough. There we go. I got it. Okay, what I did was I pressed it between the pads of my palms with my hands like this, and then rotated, and, you know, felt the threads, made sure that it didn't start locking up. If it had, you know, if it had started resisting like it was going to cross thread, I would have stopped and backed off. Okay, let's see. This is going to require possibly a crescent wrench, but the surface isn't very large. I'm going to try gripping this with the pliers. And we want to tighten this down. Okay, it says tighten the nut all the way down, then back it off 3 turns. Okay, so basically we're going to compress the spring. So I want 3 turns. That's 1. That's 2. And that's 3. Okay. So there we have our locked and loaded servo saver. So step 2, we're going to need this piece and this. We'll be doing our turnbuckles in a little bit. We need some bearings. Find out which in a moment. Okay, those look like the right size for here and for here. And so we got 2 bearings in there. Let's see. Looks like there's a slightly raised edge here to ride on the reese of the bearing. So the main thing, we're not going to want to tighten that down too much though. And there's a bushing that comes in. Okay, there's a pair of bearings that come in from below. This looks like a really nice setup here. And we have a pair of threaded bushings. And then we need a pair of countersunk screws, 3x10s, flatheads. Those are 3x10s. So the bushing is going to come through from below. And this is where we should have a little Loctite going. I'm going to go ahead and start with the screw through here and then put some Loctite at this end. Just a dab, because you want to be able to get these out someday if necessary. Okay, we got good movement. Now I need to tighten that a little more. It's a very small hex surface, so grab it gently. And there we go. You can snug it down pretty good, and you're not gonna bind anything up, but don't clamp down too hard. You don't want to squeeze the bearings or anything like that. So now we can do the other side. Okay, nice and snug, and yet everything moves nice and smoothly. This piece here is available in aluminum. I think it would really be an aesthetic thing. I don't think it would really offer any performance. This thing is so short that there's only so much deviation that you could get, you know, from flexing any part of this, like from this screw to this anchor point. I just don't see what the benefit would be of going to aluminum on that. You know, it's up to you. I think if I had the $40 or whatever to replace this piece, I'd buy titanium turnbuckles or something that would, you know, shed some weight from the vehicle. So let's see, before we do anything else, we need to do our turnbuckles for this. And let's take a look and see which direction this is going to face. So the arms face towards the front, like this. So we want our turnbuckles to face left. That's going to be this way for here. And is there a left and a right side to these? No, they look identical. These plastic pieces look the same, and they are going to orient the same. So that's not a problem. We don't have to worry. Just need to make sure that we put it together right. So again, we're back to turnbuckles. So I'm going to go ahead and pause while I do these turnbuckles. I'm going to use the little trick I did with the other ones. I pretty much do this anytime I do turnbuckles, especially big ones. I just take this body reamer and I go once around, just like one turn, shave a little bit of plastic, basically just chamfering the inner edge a little bit. It's a milder angle than a traditional chamfer. Most chamfers are like a 45-degree angle. This is a much shallower angle, and so it makes it easier to get the threads started, to start cutting them. So that's just something I do. It's up to you if you want to do it too. Okay, these use 2 of these single-sided ball studs, or pivot balls as they call them. And the difference is that you're going to have these both point the same direction. One of these goes up, one of these goes down. So this is the way it's going to face. It's going to attach here, like so, and it's going to attach underneath here. And so this, the inner one, is going to point with the short end down and the contact side up. So let's go ahead and press that one in that way. And now the other one is going to come in the opposite direction. So it looks like this. These both go the same direction. We have the longer one at the outer end, and at the inner end where it connects to the steering rack, we have this end going up. We're going to do the exact opposite on this side. And if you haven't gotten the idea and wanted to run out and buy one of these for yourself, you absolutely need to. And if this feature alone isn't enough, I'll give you something else to think about in just a moment here. It is specifically a Tekno tool, and it's made for their shocks. And so that goes like that. Perfect. You have 2 wrench sizes here, and you have 2 sizes for holding shock shafts. Now, this is where it really comes in handy, because holding shock shafts to twist on the little plastic eyelets on the bottom can be murder. And this is without a doubt the most comfortable. It's hard to say comfort because all of these things take a toll on your hand when you're squeezing them that long. This is the least abusive wrench I have ever come across. I've used probably a half dozen different ones or more. I own 3, and this is hands down the nicest one to use. It is the least abuse to your skin and your palms of your hands. So consider getting one. They're expensive, but it's the kind of thing you buy once and you're going to have it forever. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.